session, we are going to talk about cash flow, the mother's milk of investing. Cash flow is what allows for what I call sustainable investing. It allows people to stay in the game. And we all know that income property is the most historically proven asset class in the world. I know that may sound like a bold statement, but just give that one some thought. And the thing that you find in real estate investing is that even when people make mistakes or things go wrong or they get themselves into a bad deal, they can recover. And that income property is a very forgiving asset class because if you hold on to it long enough, you will almost always be a winner. Not always, but the vast majority of the time. So the key to holding on to your properties is what I call sustainable investing. It is managing cash flow properly. When you manage cash flow, you can have a lot of other things go wrong and still be okay. The reason is that you can hold on. There's a great quote that I really like, and I can't remember who it's by, but it says that success is largely a matter of hanging on after others have let go. Success is largely a matter of hanging on after others have let go. And that's what cash flow allows you to do. It allows you to hang on for the long term so that you can win the real estate game. All right, in this lesson, let's dive in a little bit here. Our learning objectives: learn what economic factors generate cash flow, learn the difference between gross and net cash flow. Of course, that's very important. It's not about the gross, it's about the net, right? And also learn how to calculate the estimated cash flow of a property. How is this property really going to perform? How will it perform in real life? The projections never really seem to work out that way in real life, do they? So we're going to explore that in this lesson a little bit, but definitely in the entire course as well. So what are the economic factors that generate cash flows from real estate? Well, in-migration, population growth, that's known as in-migration. How many people are moving into, or at least being born in that market area? What is the in-migration? In-migration being good for real estate investors and out-migration being bad, obviously. Strong employment. It's all about jobs, jobs, jobs. I know investors who invest in vacation properties, and we've never really liked vacation properties and second home type properties too much because they don't really go with the fundamentals. They don't have that stability. You're looking at a lot of times resort areas where that's the first thing people abandon if times get rough, if times get bad. So we like strong employment, strong rental rates. What is the rental market like in that metro area, in that marketplace, in that sub-market? There are many names for these things. I'm trying to kind of give you a lot of names sometimes when I talk about them. So strong rental rates, obviously very important. What about price pressure? Are the prices going up? Are they going down? Lack of upward price pressure, counterintuitively, can sometimes be a good thing for cash flows. Now, why would that be? You might be saying, Jason, don't we always want our properties to go up in value? Don't we always want to see appreciation? Well, sure we do. Appreciation is very nice, but as a prudent investor, you don't want to invest for appreciation. You want to invest for cash flow. If appreciation comes, fantastic. It's the icing on the cake, and it's a wonderful thing. But oddly and counterintuitively, when you see prices decline in a market, or at least when they're not going up much, then people don't really have urgency to buy. So a lot of people will just stay back and not worry about buying a home. They will simply rent. And that can actually improve rents. These are what's called non-correlating indicators. Now, this isn't always true, okay? But it's one of those things that is generally true as a guideline. In fact, I don't know. Nothing is always true, probably, right? So there's a disclaimer for you. But this is kind of an odd one because many people don't get it. When you see prices going up a lot, everybody in that market is feeling this fear of loss, this sense of loss. I better get in the market now. I better buy a home. And many, many renters are converting to buyers. And that's great for appreciation, but it's not necessarily great for cash flow. Counter indicators, contrarian indicators there, okay? Cash flow markets have strong economic fundamentals, but they do not necessarily have upward pressure on prices. And remember in the prior lessons when we talked about the cyclical markets and the linear markets, this is another reason that I favor as an investor. I mean, I've invested in 11 different states around the country, and that's why I favor the linear markets, because you don't have this urgency. You don't have everybody who's a renter there wanting to become a buyer, at least not that badly. It's not a big part of the psychology in that area. Also, the lack of price inflation is what keeps the cash flow ratios attractive to investors. So if we're talking about rent to value ratios, or RV ratios as I call them, then if the price is appreciating all the time, you start to lose that good rent to value ratio. I know it sounds crazy that a real estate investor and a real estate educator is saying appreciation is a bad thing. I'm not saying it's bad at all. I'm just saying there are considerations. So this is the typical story where the investor, either you may be one or you probably know of one who invested in a cyclical market like markets in, say, California or South Florida or the northeastern markets, all of these more expensive high land value markets that don't have good cash flow. But they bought the property a long time ago. I mean, where I used to live in Newport Beach, California, now I live in La Jolla, California, where I used to live in Newport Beach, there were many, many people who were usually older people that bought a beach cottage and, they bought it many years ago, decades ago, and they bought it for a very low price. And this made their thinking soft. They got kind of soft in the head because that property would appreciate over the years and they would maybe get slight rent increases, but they think like this. They think, well, the property is almost paid off, or I only paid $300,000 for that property, 3 decades ago. Now it's worth $1 million and they're getting $3,000 a month rent. That's just lunacy. If you invest $1 million in real estate, I'm hoping you're going to get at least $10,000 a month. You're going to get a 1% rent to value ratio, which is the target at the time of this recording. That is, of course, subject to change. So the difference between gross and net cash flow, let's talk about that for a moment. This may seem fairly obvious to many people, so I'll go through it kind of quickly. But, gross is the total potential income from that rental property. You measure, we talk about the rent to value ratio. So a $100,000 property that rents for $900 a month has an RV or rent to value ratio of 0.9. If it rented for $1,000, it would have a 1% RV ratio. And I want you to get close to that 1% number. The net cash flow is the cash flow from a property after all expenses have been deducted. After all the expenses have been deducted. So the measurement there is the cash on cash return. So if a property with $2,000 per year net cash flow with a net cash outlay of, in this example, say $20,000, that would be a cash on cash, sometimes abbreviated as C on C or C-C or COC, return of 10%. Okay, so calculate estimated cash flow. look here at rental rates. Research Zillow and check with local property managers. Look at the vacancy rate. We like to, on our performas, estimate a vacancy rate of 8%. Now, 8% is equivalent to 1 month per year in vacancy. Never, ever assume a property will always be occupied. You always have to include a vacancy factor. And I would suggest 8% as a decent metric. Depends on the market, depends on the property type to some extent, but 8% is a good number to at least include. I see many promoters out there with no vacancy rate or 5% or 3%, and I think that is very risky. Okay, so at least 8% there. So you can research that through property managers and so forth. The management fees, what do they charge in management fees if you're going to have a property manager? The leasing fees in terms of leasing up the property. Okay, so research that through property managers. The tax rates, they vary extensively in different markets. One market that we love are many cities in Texas, but Texas has very high property taxes. Now, the funny thing is, you have tenants thinking that they're getting away with a great deal, right? Because in Texas, they pay no income tax, and if they don't own a property, they don't pay any property tax either. But the reality is that in most cases, that expense is passed right through in the form of higher rents to the tenant. Repairs, older properties, of course, will have a higher repair expense. So you need to include this in your proforma. And when we look at how to read a proforma in a future lesson or in a bonus actually, we will go over this in detail in all of these different numbers, okay? Insurance can vary quite a bit in different markets. For example, if you're in the Gulf Coast area and you're buying property there, then you will see higher insurance rates in the post-Hurricane Katrina world. And so insurance rates vary. You got to watch out for flood zones and various hazards. They will change insurance. What is your mortgage payment? You can calculate this based on the financed amount, the interest rate, and how many years over which the loan is amortized. So cash flow is the mother's milk of investing. It makes it possible for you to engage in a practice I call sustainable investing. Sustainable investing, remember that one. Action items. Use the worksheet to calculate a cash-on-cash return for 5 different properties. Again, it's a pretty easy equation, so just calculate this cash-on-cash return, and your badge action is use the provided Excel template to load in the purchase price, down payment, amount financed, forecast some expenses, and property taxes associated with some prospective income properties, and you use this template to calculate the gross and net cash flows and the cash-on-cash return. So you're on your way to becoming a better investor. So thank you for joining me for this lesson, and we will talk to you on the next lesson. Oh, by the way, badge completion, upload the completed spreadsheet and template. Obviously, you probably know that from past lessons, but just wanted to point it out. Anyway, we'll see you on the next lesson. This is going to get really, really exciting. Think about the stuff you've already learned. You already understand the different types of real estate markets. You understand the importance of cash flow, and we're going to keep diving into this deeper and deeper. So I look forward to talking to you on the next lesson.